All right, council, call to order the regular meeting of Chisholm City Council for November 24th, 2021. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone at home, on the council, your family, all our fans out there, all our staff that isn't on a meeting with us tonight. Got to get that out of the way quick, so in case we're not talking to each other by the end of the meeting. All right, so Margaret, could you do a roll call, please?
Councilor Halverson.
Present.
Councilor Michelaraha.
Present.
Councilor Fountain.
Here.
Councilor Lance.
Here.
Councilor Vaki.
Here.
Mayor Ciampa.
Here. Council, adopt the agenda. We got a lot of different emails on this. It seems like every day I find something new that we should be taking up. But I think at the end of the day, there's actually only two additional items, which is to repost for our EMTs that expired last Thursday, and then the city employees serving on like as EMTs, so paid on call stuff. So is that it, Margaret? Is that it? It only ends up being two items.
That's correct, Mayor.
So I thought I'd put the EMT posting under Jess and the city employee paid on call under Stephanie, both as number 3. So looking for motion to accept the agenda with the two additions.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you, April. Further discussion? Margaret?
Councilor Halverson.
Aye.
Councilor Michelaraha.
Aye.
Councilor Fountain.
Aye.
Councilor Lance.
Aye.
Councilor Vaki.
Aye.
Mayor Ciampa.
Aye. Okay, the agenda is adopted. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, council reports. Let's start with Adam, as long as he got his microphone on.
I have no formal report. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Cheyenne, report tonight?
Good evening. No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Travis, report tonight?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of quick things. First of all, I just want to inform everybody that next Friday, December 3rd, from 6 to 8 is the annual Chisholm Community Foundation and Keyboard Liquor Holiday Festival. That takes place at Valentini's, costs us $50 a person, and all proceeds go to the Community Foundation for that. And then I'm going to let April tell you about bringing light to Chisholm, because I know she's going to hit on that. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was the Kiwanis Santa event, Holly Jolly, is on December 4th, and this area will be at the Vaughn. So keep your eyes open for that. Make sure you participate. Santa will be there. There's a s'more station and a whole bunch of other fun, wonderful things. So props to the Chisholm Community the Chisholm Kiwanis for such a small group to keep putting that event on year after year. So that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. April, report tonight. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Yes, I've got a little report here. First, I'd like to say thank you to all the volunteers that are bringing lights to Chisholm for December 2nd. And so I'm going to read off the flyer here that Katie Christensen from the library made. Please join us in lighting up Chisholm. The Chisholm Downtown Revitalization Committee, in collaboration with the City of Chisholm, the Chisholm Area Chamber of Commerce, the Chisholm Library, and local business owners, are teaming up to bring light into our community. On Thursday, December 2nd, the llamas will be back. There's going to be a downtown story stroll. You'll have to check out what story it is. I'm not going to reveal that. There's also going to be a book reading at the library. So join the library staff at 4:45 for a book reading. and all ages are welcome to attend that. And the lights will be turned on at dusk around 5 p.m. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot more other things going on downtown during that time. So come on downtown to Chisholm and check out Bringing Lights to Chisholm. I also wanted to let the folks know at home that we all attended a joint meeting with the school board this past Monday. Thanks, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, April. Marty, report tonight. Good evening.
Evening. I attended a working session, the city council, school board, joint working session meeting, and a Red Head meeting. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Just a brief report. Sanitary Sewer District meeting I had. We got our audit back for the year. It came back good. I turned that over to Stephanie, who then in turn turned it over to Eileen to kind of just keep it if anybody wants to see how that's going. But financially, the Sanitary Sewer District is sound, and you know, the what do you call it, the management portion of it, where they kind of give you your feedback on things you could work better on, are very similar to the city, where we don't have enough people in place to do as many checks and balances as they'd like. And then yeah, that was adjustment. A lot of them same lines where we don't have enough, there's just not enough staff, you know, there ain't two people doing the jobs, which is pretty common in those. Let's see, HRA. We had a visitor, Commissioner Michael Jugovich showed up, and he's working on getting us quite a substantial chunk of money through the county and in collaboration with Iron Range Resources. God, that's a hard word for me to say. So they're trying to help us out a little bit to do some of the deferred maintenance that was neglected over the years. Financially, the HRE is we're doing a lot better. We're doing a lot better. We're caught up on everything. For the most part, we're filling back up as soon as we can empty a place. We've had a couple unfortunate things where apartments were completely destroyed, and it cost us a lot of money, a little longer to get them done. But we're getting them cleaned out, we're getting them refilled, and that's kind of the job of that place. So that's a good thing. PUC meeting, the highlight of that. Let's talk about the PUC a little bit. So I had my PUC meeting, and it kind of yelled at me a little bit for not quite handling the rate study and the resolution correctly at the last meeting. And I read through what we did on all of that, and my understanding of what the council's intent of that was to accept the rate study as presented. That's the best information Baker Tilly had. And then go a step further and only accept the 2022 rates, because those are the only ones we really can accept. We need to review them every year. But I believe we did accept the rate study as a document, knowing full well that that needs to be reviewed next year. So the reason I was going to put it on, we pulled it off, is because I don't know that we need to do anything, but if we do, it'll come back to us. But if anybody disagrees with that, my take on what we did there, I know we are concerned about putting all those rates in that resolution for the next 5 years. I think Marty had brought that up. And understandable, but I mean, the rate study, we didn't waste money on the rate study. That's a guide we're going to go by. I think everybody agrees with that. But to go past the first year and actually accept rates, to me, I think it's nuts. We're going to have to look at them each year anyway. So I think we did the right thing there. We'll see if it actually ends up. Stephanie want to take a step back and look at it and see if we're done or if we need to look at it again. And then the other item is on the agenda tonight. A lot of requests for it. If you're filling up swimming pools, watering yards, watering gardens and stuff, you can actually get some of your sewer reduced, because obviously the water's not going down the sewer, it's going into the ground. So I think that's everything that I have to say. Any comments on anything anybody said, council, before we move on? All right, so let's move on to our department heads. Ambulance Director Jess, report tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Happy Thanksgiving. Just continuing to plug away, getting ready for our transition day. And beyond that, no official report outside of what I'll be discussing later on the agenda.
Council, anything for Jess? Thank you, Jess. Fire Chief Chris, good evening. Report tonight.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Happy Thanksgiving. No, I have no formal report for tonight.
Thank you, Chris. Council, anything for the Fire Chief that on the tip of your tongue? All right, moving on. Police Chief Vern, report tonight. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Honorable Council. No, I do not have any report tonight. I'm keeping this theme going.
Thank you, Vern. Council, anything for the chief? Building official Mandy, report tonight. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Just a short report. We did finish our first round of safety training for OSHA today with Advanced Minnesota on Zoom. And the other thing is all the demos are down. So that project has been complete. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Mandy. Council, anything for Mandy that moving on, city engineer, Jim, report tonight. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the councils. I have no report, but would happy to answer any questions that you might have of me. Otherwise, happy Thanksgiving.
Council, anything for Jim? Moving on, Larry, report tonight. Good evening.
Evening, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving and extra long weekend, which we all enjoy. I know we do. Public Works is waiting for snow. So, and that's a good place to be in right now. I watch the weather very closely. If you look at next week looks beautiful for going into December. So we have some 37s, 35s in the forecast. So we have transitioned into cutting trees. We have a 2-page list. I've started contacting people. Some people are passionate about the trees and want them to stay in front of their yards. They're in the boulevards, and others want them down. And we completed about 200. We had about 200 limbs down, I would estimate, that we chipped up. It took all week, the 3 and 4 person crew all week there after the heavy snow and then that windy weekend. So we're transitioning into trees and waiting for it to snow. So that's I'm working through the budget process right now. As the mayor spoke about the PUC meeting there, those are the last budgets that we do for the year to get to you. So we'll have those out to the PUC commissioners next week for their review. We have a meeting coming up in mid-December, and we'll get them to you for final approval. And that's what we're doing in Public Works.
Beautiful. Thank you, Larry. Council, anything for Larry?
Yeah, Larry, thank you very much for letting the fire department host their Fire One class down there this weekend. Really appreciate that. And I forgot to mention that in reports that Chisholm hosted a class with regional training. We had Buell, French, Chisholm, Cherry, Keewatin, Cohasset, Balsam, and Larry was nice enough to let us use this facility on Saturday and Sunday for testing. So thank you very much.
Anytime. No, it was fine. I was in hockey. We had a sewer call out on the weekend, which we all worked together on very well. So thanks for that. And then I had a hockey weekend in Chisholm, and I drove by and I couldn't believe, I had no idea that you had people parked like there was a big wedding in town or something. So that was crazy. So I'm glad it worked out.
All right, moving on. Rec Director, good evening. Tammy, you got a report tonight?
Yes, just a short report. Happy Thanksgiving, so I don't forget to say that. We're set with 3 skating rink attendants, Susan Dragon, Lucas Soderberg, and Ryan Musburger. And the Public Works completed the backstop to the hockey. Thanks to Larry and his crew. And that's it, unless you have any questions.
Anything for Tammy? All right, moving right along. Thank you, Tammy. Attorney Lindsay, report tonight. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. No formal report, but I am happy to field any questions the council may have.
Ryan, I'm gonna field a question that I already asked you. I know the answer, but the rest of the council didn't hear about the concern or the question I asked you, so I'm just gonna ask you again so they can all hear it. So we had a citizen come forward and ask if there's any conflict of interest if a firefighter serves on the city council. You gave us a very good answer. Could you if you could just kind of repeat what your answer to Stephanie and I was on that? And yeah, that'd be about it.
Absolutely, Mayor. So with paid on-call firefighters, the law is clear that it is not considered a full-time position that would be disqualifying from having somebody serve on the council. That being said, there are certain votes and certain things that we should take a little bit of caution with. Obviously, if we've got somebody who's on the fire department, they shouldn't be participating in the vote on any motion that would directly impact them as a member of the fire department or as not paid on-call firefighter. But otherwise, it's not a disqualification from service on the council.
And just a side note to that, is that similar? Would that be similar for our ambulance service as well?
That is correct, Mayor. When the disqualification is looked at, what is disqualifying is holding a full-time or regular part-time position with the city, and those paid on-call positions do not fall into that classification because of the irregularity of the work and the no standard set hours.
Thank you, Brian. Council, any questions on that or any other thing for Brian while we have him here? All right, moving on. Clerk Treasurer, thank you, Brian. Good evening, Eileen. Report tonight.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Wanted to say Yat Keshmish Yaje. That's how you say Happy Thanksgiving in Navajo. Just one thing to mention, I'm starting to work on the Truth in Taxation presentation for next, coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be using a really exciting new software. It's called Prezi. It's been around for a while, but I think everyone will enjoy the presentation. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Eileen. Council, anything for Eileen? All right, moving on. City Administrator Stephanie, good evening. Report tonight.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I do not have a formal report tonight. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Stephanie. Council, anything for Stephanie? All right, we'll move on. Consent agenda, that's your list of bills. Communications, which are the Airport Authority minutes, Public Utility Commission minutes, Minnesota Museum of Mining, communication, Chisholm All-Class Reunion, communication, Side Lake Event Committee donation request, Minnesota Department of Revenue Petroleum Tax Audit, Municipal Clerks and Finance Officers Association communication, minutes of the previous city council meetings, the November 10th, 2021 regular meeting, payroll and overtime. I get a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll make your motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Travis. Second for that.
Second.
Thank you, April. Discussion, concerns, corrections, council? If not, I'll look to Margaret, take a vote.
Counselor Halverson.
Aye.
Counselor Nicolaraha.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Vaki.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion carries. All right, new business. Jess, job description for emergency medical responders. Good evening.
Technical issues getting unmuted there, sorry. Yes, so in light of the fact that we may be using emergency medical responders on our service, in addition to the fact that the expectation for an EMT hire who is not yet certified as an EMT would be for them to function as an EMR in the interim, subsequently meant that we had to have a separate job description for the EMR. So I am just asking for council's approval of that job description as attached.
Council, ambulance director looking for a motion to accept that EMR, job description.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Shades. Thank you, Adam. Further discussion, council?
I do have a question for Jess. Jess, can you just share that, you know, the hope is to not be staffing our service with full of EMRs, and that, you know, as a temporary solution to maybe not having a ton of EMTs, that this is a short-term hope and goal?
Sure. My goal is to encourage growth and development professionally, and EMR is a very good segue into that. The EMT certification does take a little bit of a time, particularly depending upon the venue of which training takes place in. So I want to offer people the ability to come in and function as EMRs. So they're going to be able to assist higher certified personnel on scene. They will also be able to drive the ambulance. So we can actually put this certification to use, and they can be helpful on the service while obtaining the education and required training to get their EMT certification. I believe this is a short-term solution to be able to help us start filling shifts as we needed. We have to have an EMT in tandem with an EMR for each ambulance call. But much like Travis had stated, my goal is to not hire an EMR to stay an EMR. The goal is to encourage that professional development and growth. I understand that some folks may have reservations about going on to get their EMTs, so it is not a hard line requirement, but it would certainly be encouraged. And I don't know yet exact numbers on how many EMRs that we, you know, down the road as we're fully staffed, how many EMRs I would be able to have on the service. But it would certainly not be a disqualification at this point in time.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I think there's just some confusion out there in the social media world. So thank you for clearing that out.
Absolutely, thank you.
Council, anything else before we take a vote on that? Margaret?
Counselor Halverson.
Aye.
Counselor Mikuláva.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Vaki.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. That motion carries. Just post for EMR positions. Maybe you want to take these both up. I mean, it's basically going to be a posting. I think we're going to open up for both EMRs and EMTs again. But I'll let you talk to that if what you're thinking.
Correct. I would like to reopen the posting for the EMT and keep it open until filled. Very similar to what the fire department does. Just continually take applications in and look at them and fill positions as we feel we need them. And after chatting with Stephanie and the city attorney, I don't think it necessarily needs to be a separate EMR posting, that the EMR job description will be in place since people would be hiring in under the EMT EMT posting and working as an EMR in the interim while they seek that EMT job title and certification. But yes, I would like to open that until positions are filled.
So should we take these as two different items and you handle it the way you want? Or do we just post for the EMT, repost for the EMT?
My flyers are posting just as EMT, since it says in there they don't have to be certified as an EMT at that point in time. And then there would be open and full disclosure upon communication and or interview process that they would need to be an EMR in the interim while making that good faith effort to obtain EMT certification. So yeah, I think it would probably be better served just to open up an EMT posting, excuse me, and understanding that they may be placed into the EMR job description while obtaining certification.
Okay, Council, looking for a motion to take up both of these items as one item, and with the recommendation just gave us, that it would be basically opening up the EMT position, but EMRs are included in that. Obviously looking towards the future as an EMT.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to, is it all right if I ask Jess a quick question and then I'll make a motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Jess and I had a great conversation, but and I'm glad that Councilor Vaki brought this too. Just for people to get clarification, everybody needs to understand, for these are paid on call, correct? They're paid on call. They're not union positions. They're not 40 hours a week. They're not, a full time. There's not any benefits to this. So, $12.50 an hour for because I asked Jess about this, $12.50 an hour for a medical EMT is, I guess it is a good rate. And then the other one was $10.50 an hour for a EMR. So we kind of discussed that. So being that's the average paid on call, not the average wage. And just to make that clarification there. And then Jess, were you thinking about possibly later down the line maybe hiring for paramedics or possibly having some tuition paid for, or how does that work? Can you explain that?
To tackle the first part of that question, right now my primary focus is getting a solid BLS service put together in service and running efficiently. Once that's accomplished and far down the line, if we see the need or necessity for paramedics or part-time personnel, full-time personnel, whatever the case may be, we'll take that as it comes. I don't know what the future holds. Again, the primary focus being getting everything rolling and offering the BLS service that the city needs. And as far as the second part of your question with tuition reimbursement, are you referring just to EMT certification or medic certification?
EMT certification and also the EMR certification as well.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, so tuition reimbursement is included in my budget for EMT certification. Working with the city attorney on coming up with an agreement to so employees will come in and we will work on getting tuition reimbursement for the EMT certification in return for service provided to us as an EMT. EMR, we are not 100% decided on at this point in time. It's definitely an option that we are looking into. Again, that would be more with that expectation that they would make a good faith effort to obtain that EMT certification within 12 months of hire, as is outlined in the job description.
Thank you, Jess. Mr. Mayor, make that motion.
Thank you, April. Before I call for a second, let me just make sure I write you down so I know you made that motion. April, you said a couple of things there that actually might confuse some people. You actually could work 40 hours. We can't have you, obviously we're trying to not have you engaged for over 40 hours, but paid on call, you could be working 40 hours because you're not engaged. So, or more, I believe. And then, doesn't para kick in as well on this because they're public employees? Jess, can you help me with that? I think we had that was part of this, right?
We are still investigating that. I have submitted a package to para. Their general counsel is looking into the circumstances surrounding this transition and our pay structure, all that fun stuff. I have not yet heard back from them on that. I will be updating you guys as soon as I hear anything back from para, though.
Okay, good. So good, just 2 clarifications. But yeah, you could realistically work 80 hours a week as long as you're not engaged for more than 40. So it could be a pretty good part-time job for somebody or a job. So, all right. So April made the motion, looking for a second for the motion to post for those positions.
Support.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Further discussion, Council?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Marty.
just so I'm clear on the motion, we're posting two postings, one for EMRs and one posting for EMTs, right? Two distinct postings to make it clear.
Let me have Jess, no, I think that's wrong. I think she's looking at one posting, but it sort of encompasses all. Jess, you want to kind of go through that again, what you're posting, kind of?
Yeah, I'm asking to do a posting for the EMT position, and if an applicant or candidate applies that is not certified as an EMT, since it is written within that job description that that's not a prerequisite, the requisite is that they be willing and able to obtain that certification within 12 months. But since they would not be functioning in the exact same role, I have to have another job description to kind of just cover what they would be working in the interim as the EMR. So we would accept, I don't know how if I'm wording it clearly. So they are applying and anticipated to be filling in the EMT role, but they're working under the EMR job description in the interim, but the posting is actually for EMT with the expectation that they obtain that certification within 12 months.
Mr. Mayor, my recommendation is that we do separate postings for the separate positions. This is too confusing, and people aren't going to necessarily jump in and grasp exactly what you're talking about. This needs to be simple and clear. What you're talking about is confusing. So for clarity, my recommendation is you post for both. And people can apply to be an EMT and get hired as an EMT. They can apply to be an EMR and get hired as an EMR. And during the interview process and selection process, I'm sure you'll be able to figure out who wants to work their way up towards EMRs and encourage them to do so. But the way this is being handled right now is confusing.
Can I touch on that just a little bit?
Yes, go ahead, Steph.
Councilor Halverson, the only thing that I would see as an issue is we aren't hiring for EMRs for a permanent position or for paid on call, obviously. Like Jess said, the hope is that they would then go through the training to become an EMT. So the position wouldn't be for an EMR. They would transition into the EMT as they go to school.
Yeah, I think if you post for an EMR, there's no expectation of advancement. I think we confuse it. But we could make it one posting, you're advertising for EMTs, but the minimum requirements are an EMR type of deal, right, Jess? Something like that. That's kind of part of the posting with minimum requirements EMR with the whatever that you said, the ability and desire to work towards an EMT, however you said that. That would be
yeah, if we can make that work, I'm fine with that. As long as applicants are clear that the expectation is that they try to advance. And I just had a thought that just left my head. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Okay.
So I initially agreed with Marty, but after Jess explained it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jess. So you just have to have this job description if someone with an EMR were to apply, so that if someone were to ask, you would be able to show them what an EMR does or is required to do, what their duties are. So the posting is for an EMT, but we have to approve the EMR job description just in case an EMR applies, of course, in the hope of them becoming an EMT. But you have to have that job description. Brian, am I on par here?
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes, Brian.
Yep, Councilor, I think you are. I think that's what the intent is so that in the EMT posting, essentially what Ms. Davis could say is an EMR wishing for advancement may be considered if they're willing to move up. And then if that person is brought on in that capacity, we have to have a description to capture what exactly it is they're doing, because we clearly couldn't hire them under an EMT position description because they wouldn't meet the qualifications.
Thank you, Brian.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Marty.
I couldn't hear half what Stephanie said, so I'm not sure what she said. She cut out, at least on my end. But I think we're just being way too ambiguous here and fuzzy. This needs to be clear, and I'm sorry, but it's not clear the way we're going to be doing this. We can't work on hope and we think and maybes. This should be clearly advertised that, hey, we're willing to hire an EMT. I mean, we're willing to hire an EMR to be on the crew, to drive an ambulance. And with that, I think it should be the opposite. If we hire an EMR, it should be listed that we would hope and anticipate that they would work their way up into the EMT position, not the other way around, where we're going to advertise for EMRs and then, oh, maybe we'll get an EMT and maybe we can talk them into it. I think we're going about this exactly backwards. Or are we posting for both positions?
Marty, the problem with that, the part you missed from what Stephanie said is we don't want EMRs. The only reason we want EMRs is if their intention is to apply for an EMT. We're just accepting an EMR as part of the EMT application process if they'll work towards an EMT. And what she actually said was, we're not posting for EMRs. Nobody we hire do we really want to stay as an EMR. So, whereas we could give them the impression we're hiring EMRs. We're hiring EMRs as an interim, but our goal is, I'm assuming Jess is going to ask me or tell him that, you know, our goal is to have you work towards an EMT certification, or, you know, we're not sure we can use you. Because that is our ultimate goal, is to have all EMTs. So I think by applying, you know, asking for EMRs, I think that could more confuse people, because that's only a stepping stone. Whereas if you post as for EMTs, that you accept EMRs as part of it, then, you know, so, you know, post for EMTs and EMRs working towards their EMT degree, that's kind of what we're doing. And I think that would be one posting. Go ahead.
If I may speak again, does our EMT job description have this in it? Does it have this function in it in description clearly stated?
I don't know what you mean by that. We have two different job descriptions. We have an EMT and an EMR.
Okay, we're advertising for EMTs.
Correct.
Is what we're talking about in that job description. Does the job description say we will accept an EMR with the permission that they work there?
There's a difference between a job posting and a job description. You're juggling them into one. The posting is what we're asking for. We're asking for EMTs, but we're also allowing you to come in as an EMR if you you intend to work towards being an EMT.
That's my question. Does our EMT job description have this language in it?
No, because we have a separate job description. We have a job description for an EMR.
So how is somebody that's an EMR supposed to know that they can apply?
Because it's going to be part of the posting. I think it's going to be part of posting, isn't it, Jess?
If I can, it will be part of that, but Marty, to answer your question, and hopefully this will answer, on the EMT minimum qualifications under the job description, it says valid Minnesota EMT certification or higher, or willing/able to obtain within 12 months of hire, must certify as emergency medical responder in interim, which must be maintained throughout employment.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that's in there, because otherwise I don't know how an EMR person is going to know that they can even apply for this job.
Right.
April, I think you made the original motion. The posting that Jess just read, is that your understanding? That's
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
okay. Who seconded that? I don't recall. Travis?
Cheyenne.
Sharon, that's your understanding too, what Jess kind of just read the posting?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Council, any other discussions on that? Okay.
Counselor Halverson.
No.
Counselor Nicola Raha.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Baki.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Okay, so we took those both up together, so let's move on. Thank you, Jess. We'll move on to Larry. Outside water meters that I spoke about a while ago. Good evening.
You did, Mayor. Good evening again. This has been like a years of discussion, I guess, and it's really the right thing to do. We have the ability, we have the requests from folks. We get people that want to beautify their yards and have their gardens and they want to make skating rinks. And I'm happy to present to you from the PUC as informational that we have bought 10 water meters. We're calling them outside water meters. I apologize if that doesn't have a lot of bling, but people are able to come rent we have a buy options, we have rent options by the week, by the month, but you're able to get an outside water meter if you want to make a hockey rink for your kids, if you want to water your garden or irrigate your lawn. Like we had such a terribly dry winter last year, well, we did too, actually, kind of, but the summer, and your lawn is dead, we will rent you a water meter and we will deduct the normal sewer charges that would be associated with the same amount of water. So we meter water and we meter sewer against the water. And I'm sorry if that's confusing, but I do want to put the facts out there that you will pay for the water that you use, but you do not have to pay for the sewer because it does not go down the sewer. It goes outside in your lawn. So it's, I know some people will be very pleased with it, and we're in the business to sell water. So if we sell more water because of this and the lawns look a little bit better and there's more hockey rinks and all that stuff, we're happy about it. So any question about that? They're to be used outside. We have weekly, monthly rentals. You can buy a meter if you wish. And we're looking forward to it because we've had several requests over the last few years.
We certainly have. Just informational, PUC's doing it already, so.
Correct, Mayor. It's within our bounds, I guess. So.
Council, any questions for Larry on that? I think, as he mentioned, I think I can come up with 6-7 people in my time on the PUC that have come and asked about that. So I think it'll be a good thing. Like you said, the more water we sell, the better off we are too. So it helps that budget. So
we have the forms, the contracts at City Hall, and then the instructions as well. So Denise, Clerk Keeley there will walk you through it, and we're trying to make it real easy. You can take a picture with your phone and you can email to her monthly or weekly, and she'll take care of that, and she'll get you set up perfectly if you're interested. So
hey there. Council, if there's nothing else, we'll move on.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Sharon.
do we have those rental prices set yet?
we do. I think it's $5 a week or $10 a month. So like I would see filling a swimming pool, you'd rent it for $5 for the week, and then you'd bring it back. And then if you were going to do a garden, you'd want a monthly rate for $10. And those are the rates: $5 a week and $10 a month. I mean, don't hold me to it, but I believe I believe that's what it is. It's really reasonable, and the meters are reasonable and they're easy to use. So we encourage every person.
The rates are on page 28 too, on the back of the memo. So you are correct.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that.
Anything else, Council? Yeah, I think that's a good thing. All right, we'll move on. Thank you, Larry. Jim, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor.
Application number 6 for the 3rd Street Northwest Improvement Project. Jim, could you give a little bit update on, the discussion on liquidated damages, that we're not quite there yet. still trying to figure out where we're at on that, so they have an answer there too.
Exactly. The request went to our consultant engineer that was providing the construction services on that project. They are putting together their review and recommendations, which they will submit to me. And from that, I will prepare a follow-up recommendation and bring it back to council for your review and consideration. And I would expect that I will have that for your first meeting in December. Then with regards to the pay application, I think I've got it pretty well summarized on page 29, which replicates what's on the back of the actual pay application form, which shows up on page 31. But basically, you see the total work completed to date is a little over $1.2 million. We're holding about $60,400 in as that 5% retainage that we hold until the project is completed and finalized, which will be next year, hopefully. Previous payments of $911,074.94, leaving a balance due at this time of $236,710.93. And I would recommend approval of that pay application in that amount. And as a side note, I did go through that pay application and tried to estimate what it's going to cost additionally to complete that project, and it was just slightly under $100,000 to take care of the seeding, the sodding, the final lift of bituminous, and a few other miscellaneous items that will need to be finalized out as well, which would bring the total project cost to about $1.3 million. And that's about a little over about $308,000 less than the price that was bid, and you'll see that actually on the pay application in the one of the initial sets of or the middle columns, if you will, on that pay application. It shows the total bid price was $1.624 million. So hopefully good news in that respect. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Jim, I do have a quick question. So with this pay application, we're sitting on about $60,000 in retainage. If I brought to your attention the last time I had some concerns about some of the damage that was done on the curbing and stuff. Is that handled differently? That's like a warranty item, right? That's really has nothing to do with the retainage. We don't accept the project until we accept the project, right? And that's something different.
Yes, we're not to the point yet of final acceptance of that project because the turf restoration and the final course of bituminous needs to be put on, and if there are corrective actions needed before that time, they will be done before we ever accept the project. And once the council accepts the project, then we start the 1-year warranty period. One other note is we had a resident along there contact Larry and I this week, and they would like to plant a garden in their boulevard area rather than having it sodded. So we're kind of excited to see that. So maybe we'll see vegetables or flowers in the boulevards as opposed to sod. So that opportunity is out there for next year for those people that might be interested as well. So happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Jim, let me ask you one more quick one.
Sure.
It's probably in the contract. I didn't read it in the contract, but when does a person get their retainage? At the end of the year warranty or whatever?
When the city council accepts the project, which will be hopefully sometime next summer. I think the final completion date is July 1, which is a Friday, I believe. And thereafter, we would be processing a final pay application. It's at that point that you release the retainage. And then the warranty, which includes performance bonds, payment bonds, and so forth, comes into effect as well to guarantee that anything that's under warranty or needs to be repaired under that warranty period gets done.
Thank you, Jim. Council, so city engineer is looking for a motion to accept that pay application number 6 as outlined on pages 29 to 31.
Mr. Mayor, are we allowed to ask questions before the motion?
Yep.
Thank you. Jim, I went up there to look today at the alleged cracked concrete, but of course you can't see it now because it's under the snow. But one other thing came to mind because I hadn't been up there since early in the project. What's going on with that house that has the massive excavation in the front? Is there supposed to be a retaining wall and steps there? What's the story there? It's on the north side, about halfway down.
Yes, that gentleman actually works for Lay CAD Construction, and he is going to be building a retaining wall himself. What you see out there is exactly what he asked for. Our construction observer met and worked with him on numerous occasions, and he is very satisfied with the condition it's in, and he plans to build his own retaining wall at that location, right there at the northwest quadrant of 8th Avenue and 3rd Street.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Council looking for a motion to accept the application number 6.
Make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Marty. Second.
Support.
Cheyenne, thank you. Further discussion? Margaret?
Counselor Halverson.
Aye.
Counselor Nicolaraha.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Baki.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Jim. We'll move on to Eileen's items. Resolution 1121-90 fiscal year 2021 budget adjustments. Eileen, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. So before you see a resolution to adopt an amended fiscal year 2021 budget. And what it does is recognize some important revenues that were unbudgeted that are actually being used to cover some expenses within the street department as well as the Redhead Mountain Bike Park department. So this is the budget amendment justification document that you have in your packet, was presented to you at our last meeting as an informational item. And the resolution was that you see before you mirrors what the city of Chisholm has used before when when a fiscal year budget was amended. I believe it was in 2017. So just to give you a little bit of background on that.
We're looking for a motion to adopt resolution 1121-90 to make those adjustments. Council would entertain that motion.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you, April. Further discussion?
Mr. Mayor. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Cheyenne.
It looks as though in the resolution itself, it needs to have the correct resolution number added.
We're looking, Cheyenne.
Right at the beginning, whereas pursuant to resolution, it should read 112190.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, Mayor, if I may, this is Margaret.
Is that the old resolution?
You need to refer back to the resolution that was passed for the budget itself. So Cheyenne, that is correct? Thank you.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Marty? Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was gonna question then, after the expense is paid to the contractor at Redhead, will be carried over into 2022. I'm just curious how that is handled. Did we handle that next year with another resolution or what? Because it'll be like 105,000 roughly carried over into next year.
Yeah, Marty, you raised a really good question, Marty, and it's a process that I'm working with Stephanie on. It's something that the city doesn't practice currently, but it is something I'm going to bring up in our next budget meeting. I've provided some documentation and data to reflect that. So I'm sorry I don't have a definitive answer for you. But in the past, my understanding, what we've done is communicated that there will be leftover monies, and we incorporate it within the budget the next year.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I just want to make sure we do incorporate that into next year's revenue.
Thank you.
Okay, council, a motion and support to adopt resolution 1121-90. Any other discussion? Margaret?
Counselor Halverson.
Aye.
Counselor Mickleraha.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Hockey.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion carries. Resolution 1121-91, certify assessments and liens to the county. Kind of a housekeeping item. Eileen, you wanna?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So this is the certification of street and sewer assessment that are sent to the county every year. So as the mayor indicated, it's a housekeeping item.
Jim probably can answer this even better, but maybe Eileen can. So these start off as everybody has paid. So like if the 10-year assessment is done, then these kind of roll off, right? Would that be correct? Yeah.
That's
These are
correct.
all the ones that people are still paying on, basically.
That's correct. Unpaid assessments and utility liens.
Okay. Council looking for motion to adopt that resolution.
Motion.
Thank you, Travis. Second for that.
Support, Marty.
Thank you, Marty. Further discussion? Margaret?
Counselor Halverson.
Aye.
Counselor Mickleraha.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Hockey.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Motion carries. Last item, I don't think we need Eileen for this one. Adopt resolution 1121-92 to designate the sports arena, Chisholm Sports Arena, Sports Complex, our polling place for the next year's election for 2022. For motion to adopt that resolution.
Mayor, I've got questions. I mean, make that motion.
I was gonna say, boy, I don't know. What we're gonna hold it? City Hall. All right. Second for that.
Support.
I'll give it to Cheyenne. She beat you, Travis. Further discussion? Margaret?
Counselor Halverson.
Aye.
Counselor Mickleraha.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Hockey.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you, Eileen. Stephanie, 2022-2023 law enforcement agreement with the city of Buell. Before I turn it over to Stephanie, we had a little bit of a talk. Adam had some concerns about, Vern thought we were fine with a 0% increase for next year. So I actually asked Eileen to give me some numbers, and I asked Vern to give me some numbers on what's really going on out there, what we really pay for an officer. And well, kind of what I got, you have the numbers, you have a lot of what I got fed back is in the packet, but Vern and I think most of us believe that we're somewhere less than $70,000 when you figure the rough amount of hours we are over there. Based on the cost of an officer minus the fines that are revenue for us, the fines that we receive, plus some overhead such as gas, wear and tear on the vehicles. We believe worst case we're at about 70,000. Contract I think is 87,000 if I recall. So I didn't get real heartburn over next year. Buell agreed to 3% the following year. And then I asked Vern to reach out to the city of Buell. I don't know if he got this to everybody, but the city of Buell was in agreement that they would also go 3% in 2024 if we if we wanted to do a 3-year contract with them, they were in agreement with that as well. Stephanie, Vern, both of you guys, if you want to chime in, I think I tried to do the best I could with that.
I think you hit everything, Mr. Mayor. And I would recommend going with a 3-year contract just to get it off our plate for a 033 for 3 years, and then we don't have to really worry about this or discuss it for a couple of years. It would be a good recommendation, I think.
Council discussion, if not, I would, Brian, any issue with doing a 3-year contract with Bill, if the council goes along with that?
Thank you, Mayor. No issue with the 3-year contract. If we went out longer than 3, we may have some questions, but 3 years is acceptable.
Okay. Council, that'd be my recommendation as well. Like I said, I think we're doing okay this year. It looks like by the numbers that we crunched, and we get a full 3% the next years. I think that's fair. Yeah, gas can't go much higher than it is. So, yeah. So I'd entertain that motion. Start there. If not, if you're uncomfortable with it, I guess we can look at a 2-year. Or we can look at suggestions.
Mr. Mayor, I guess I like the chief's idea of a 3rd year, but then now that you said 2-year, I think, we don't know what's going to happen, after we get our public safety building built and things like this. I mean, and then if you think about it, it's only 1% increase each year, right, Chief?
No,
think about it, get a 3-year contract at 3% over 3 years.
It's going to be 0% for 2022, then 3% for 2023, and then 3% for 2024. So it'd be locking them into that 3%, not next year, but the 2 years after. So that's a pretty good increase. Yeah, that's a pretty good increase.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was my question. Thank you.
You want to make a motion?
Marty, do you have any questions?
No, that answered my question. That was, I think my question is when it was 0 next year, 3% the following year, and 3% the 3rd.
Mr. Mayor, my question can be after we make this motion. So I will make the motion for a 3-year contract with the city of Buell at 0% for 22, 3% for 23, and 3% for 24.
And all other terms stay the same.
Correct.
Second.
Thank you, Travis. Thank you, April. Okay, go ahead, Travis. You had a question.
Okay, now my question is for Vern. Vern, when do you anticipate that we are going to get the money that we're owed? It says on here on the back that we're still owed $2,075 for 2020 and $2,120 for 2021.
So I missed that on this agenda, and I don't really deal with the money that goes directly to Eileen, so I don't really know when we get paid, if it's quarterly, monthly, or why we're missing any money. So I could address that with them.
Vern, I think he's asking about the fines that were expected.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Travis. Thank you. That goes to collections. That's a revolving door, even with the city. If you see any time with our city, if we pulled in $1,000 in parking fines for the month, we're owed at least twice that in fines due. And a lot of times we have to send those all to collections. That's an ongoing thing, us collecting from those people that don't want to pay. So that's not the city of Buell owing us. That is the people that are fined, and it's outstanding with them, the individuals.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you for clarifying that.
Sorry for the confusion.
Yeah.
Anything else, council, before we take a vote? Margaret?
Counselor Halverson.
Aye.
Counselor Nicolaraha.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Vaki.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. The motion carries. Stephanie, purchase items and supplies for Longyear for the ambulance service.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, myself and Jess had met with Roland and Joe from Longyear to discuss the supplies that are currently within the facility, and it's broken down in your packet. But they have the current EMS supplies, which are new supplies, and then uniforms and jackets and personal, the PPE, and then also business property, which encompasses furniture, anything of that nature, office equipment, that sort of thing. Margaret has emailed you the email that we had sent to Joe with the offer of the reduced price, and that is where the $25,598 is reflected from that. So it would be 20% reduction from the EMS supplies, which is, like I said, new supplies, uniforms and jackets at 50% reduction, and business property 35% reduction.
Stephanie, so essentially it, this makes this a turnkey operation because everything we didn't own in that building, we would now own.
That is correct. Yes. Less cell phones. We are purchasing our own cell phones through the city, but everything that's in the basically it's everything that's in the building. Yes, including all PPE.
Council looking for a motion to, I guess this would be the final puzzle piece with regard to Longyear when it comes to any items that we didn't already own. So looking for a motion to purchase the items and get her done.
I'll make that motion. Let's get her done.
Thank you, April. Second for that.
Support.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Further discussion?
So I guess I just will play devil's advocate here. Why wasn't it included with the building?
Because we just bought the building.
That we bought. So we just bought the roof and walls, huh?
We didn't buy the content of the building when the purchase agreement went through. And actually, Lindsay, if you have anything additional to comment on that.
Well, and Mayor, if I may, during the negotiations, there was a request, if I remember correctly, to buy the whole shebang, lock, stock, and barrel. But I think at that point, I believe Longyear had indicated that they weren't quite in a position to know what the personal property was worth, and they asked that it be separated out.
Further discussion? Order.
Counselor Halverson.
Aye.
Counselor Mikulášová.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Vaki. Mayor Champa.
Aye. The motion carries. Last item under Stephanie, the paid on call with city employees. Staff are gonna have to help me with this. We've had so many discussions about this. I'm not sure what we need to do tonight on this.
There has been many discussions, and I will probably defer to Attorney Lindsay on a lot of it. Also, he's been in contact with the League of Minnesota Cities to get all of the information to you tonight. Attorney Lindsay, can you address your conversation that you had today?
Yeah, so we did reach out to the League of Minnesota Cities just to clarify the understanding that we had of how a paid on call employees and Stephanie, correct me if you like more or steer me in a different direction. But what we did was clarified how the paid on call service would work as it relates to employees of the city who would also like to be members either of the paid on call fire department or paid on call EMS. And what was included as supplemental to the package tonight is kind of a written example of how that calculation or how calculation of overtime would work for purposes of having essentially somebody would hold a regular full-time position with the city and then also would hold a position as a paid on-call firefighter or paid on-call EMT. And so essentially the way that it works is we can have individuals who would be, hold those two positions. We could have them acknowledge or sign an acknowledgement ahead of time indicating that time that they would be paid for overtime at their in their EMT role or on paid on call firefighter role would be paid at the rate that's paid to the EMT. And then there's a written example contained in the material that looks at it. But as you'll see, there's kind of a twist within that example. So the way that it works is that the hours that are worked as a paid on-call EMT, if they're not engaged to service, so if somebody is just on call and awaiting a call to service, those hours aren't counted against the employee for purposes of overtime calculation. But if the person is called into service, then the example that's been handed out, it talks about an employee who works, I believe the example is a public works employee who works 40 hours Monday to Friday and then gets called into service on Saturday as an EMT or firefighter. And basically what it indicates is that time would all be considered overtime pay at the rate assigned to the EMT position. The caveat, or what you'll see in there, is if those hours are worked earlier in the week, it could create some overtime in the employee's regularly paid position or full-time position within the city in the late hours of the work week. So essentially the way that works is whether you're engaged in your regular full-time position or whether you're engaged as a paid on-call EMT when you're actually called into service, those hours count as hours worked for calculating the 40-hour ceilings that come both from the collective bargaining agreements as well as from the Fair Labor Standards Act. And so we can end up with a little bit of overtime in the regular shift at the end of the week. And in addition to that, there are some rules that apply. So if an EMT, a paid on-call EMT, is released from their regular position to go out and respond to an EMT call and they're engaged in that EMT role, if it's during their regularly scheduled shift, they would continue to receive the regular pay for their full-time position with the city. And then the other issue that arises with the paid on call is the para issue that we're looking for a little bit more guidance from the folks who handle para. And so with that short explanation, I'd be happy to try and field any questions the council or anybody would have as it relates to that topic.
Ryan, I just want to clarify one thing quick. Does that qualify for EMT also, or just fire and police?
It does not. So the exemption does not extend to EMTs.
Can you explain that?
Let me look back to my materials and see if I can get you a better way to explain it. So, actually, I may have misspoke here. The exemption is, if I'm not mistaken, the exemption is the ability to waive the overtime from the regular position. And as an EMT, because there's certain exemptions that apply solely to firefighters and the police officers. And that exemption would not apply to the EMTs. So you would actually run into a little bit more of an overtime issue with the EMTs.
So ultimately, what we're trying to do is decide if we're gonna allow this, right? That's it?
Right.
That's why this conversation started? So the issue becomes if they're working as an EMT and they're engaged and they're thrown over to 40 hours, that's where it costs us some money. If all the hours on call, they never get engaged in an actual call or a training or anything, it's not that big of a deal. Council, how do you feel about this? I don't, like you said, I don't know what we're gonna end up with for EMTs, but if we're looking for some people I wanna get on, and it might be something we got, if we don't look at it tonight, we might have to revisit it. I don't know. Artie? Did you?
So what I'm hearing and what's in the packet, this applies to volunteer firefighters, and maybe some communities have volunteer police, which seems odd, but sounds like this example applies to fire and police and does not apply to EMT. Is that am I understanding this correctly? That the example in the discussion here is strictly about fire and police?
Brian, can you?
That was what was in the packet, and I think that's what I just heard Brian say, that these examples are being listed for volunteer fire, volunteer police, paid on call volunteers, but does not apply to paid on call EMT, EMS.
Right.
Brian, is there any scenario that you can see where a city AFSCME employee would not be subject to their normal pay and their normal overtime activity?
I'm sorry, Counselor, could you repeat the question?
Do you see any scenario where it would be possible for a city AFSCME employee to not get paid their full rate, regular or overtime, as serving as an ET?
It doesn't appear that way. It looks like when you're engaged in service for the city, you would be engaged in service.
Attorney Lindsay, would it be the hybrid, the combined model? Or would it be the?
Yeah, what you would look at is that more complicated, in the example that was handed out, that more complicated hybrid model would be the pay that would be assigned. The issue becomes, or the trouble becomes, with our regular full-time employees, any amount of service that they're engaged as a paid on call EMT, they would be engaged in overtime at one point or another. And so we would always end up with this calculation. And this is regardless of whether they're on call or engaged. Or are they on call at $12.50 an hour? No, the on-call would be at $12.50 an hour because those aren't hours engaged to service. So they're not boots on the ground time. They're still, those folks while on call are still able to a reasonable extent go about their daily activities. And so since they're not restricted to the call to service, they're not having hours counted against the overtime. So theoretically, an employee could spend a good amount of time on call during the week and not go into overtime so long as there's no call out. But once that call out happens, there's by definition there's going to be some overtime created, and you're going to have to do the weighted balance, the weighted formula for the pay. And that's once they exceed 40 hours. Or is that just? It is once they exceed 40 hours, but by definition, their regular full-time hours are going to be 40. I mean, so theoretically, they could elect to take some time off. Although the question becomes, as we negotiate contracts, are the hours clearly stated during vacation periods as not accruing as against time hours worked for overtime calculations? So.
And Brian, so it's exactly as you sent from that League of Minnesota Cities there. The definition is basically exact as you sent, to be clear. Thank you, appreciate it.
Question.
Good, Marty.
Has anybody discussed this with AFSCME? Has the city discussed this issue with AFSCME?
I may be able to respond to that, Mayor. Technically, these would be two separate positions, and the secondary position wouldn't be an AFSCME position at this point, as a paid on call. And so technically, they're considered two separate positions. It's just the hours worked and overtime calculation issue that becomes a problem.
And then that's why I'm asking if they've been contacted. If there's going to have to be a memo of understanding or something, because we can't put this on and say this is the way it is. They're going to have some.
It would, if I may, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this would be eligible if it was agreed to move forward with this. It would also be with LELS, AFSCME, and MAPE, because we have our hourly employees under all of our unions. So any of those folks would be eligible for this.
You know, I'm not necessarily against this, council, but I think we should sit down and if we think we're gonna do this, we should try to sit down and put some hypotheticals together. If a police officer comes on as an EMT and he gets engaged, he or she gets engaged, what are we really paying? If a AFSCME employee comes on and ends up engaged, what exactly is it costing us? And so on, give us the range there and see if it's worth it. I don't think it's something we need to rush into, but we may need to talk about it if we get enough requests. Right now, I don't know that we even have anybody looking to do this. I think it would be easier if we actually knew what the number range would be. We know it's going to be overtime. Sounds like with the AFSCME union, that one is pretty cut and dried. It's like their overtime. It's a hybrid, right? A hybrid? Yeah. I don't know. What do we want to do, council? We're looking for a decision if we want to investigate this further, or if we're going to go with a no right now, I guess, or are we going to proceed and then we're going to have to figure out what those are. I guess if we're going to allow it, we might have to put together a committee or have another meeting, because there were some concerns we discussed about some criteria on when we could schedule people. You know, Larry had some concerns and they are valid concerns, so.
I'm not against it, Mayor. I just was, just wanted to share some other sides. That was all.
And Mayor, one other item I can add here. Part of the rules that apply in these circumstances are if an employee is at their regular full-time position, in order to be called away, they've got to be released by their direct supervisor. And so they can't, on their own volition, abandon their regular position to go respond to a call or take a call. They would have to contact their direct supervisor and be released from duty into the call.
Yeah, this might be a question for Eileen too, if she's still on. I mean, is this really easy to put together a little like a little spreadsheet of what this is going to cost us, so we can have a little bit of a visual? Stephanie's nodding her head. Maybe that would help us make this decision. You know, if we can say, okay, if a police officer comes on as an EMT, here's what might happen. If AFSCME employee does, here's what could happen. It is okay. I mean, I think maybe, like you said, it's not a hurry. We don't have a real request right now. I think that would help us make a decision, so we see how it compares to what our regular EMTs are making. I don't know how the council feels about that. That'd be my recommendation. Maybe we see if we can put together a little spreadsheet.
I have a quick question. I believe it's under my understanding that if a paid on call employee makes over X amount of money throughout the year actively engaged, you actually have to offer them a full-time position in that service. Is that correct? You know, if somebody is a paid on call EMT, they make $8,000 while they're actively engaged. I guess that would be easier to do if they're a full-time city employee making overtime, but how would that work if that is correct? That they're already a city employee? Would you have to open up a position inside a different area? I mean, this is something to bring to the table later for clarification.
Mayor, I can touch this one briefly. In council, it may be a discussion for a separate meeting or to have a little bit down the road. My understanding of this issue is that it's not a set dollar amount or a set number of hours. The question becomes whether they become so regularly engaged in the calls that they become a standard employee. And this deals a lot of times it's more pertinent to the question of whether somebody's a volunteer, a true volunteer in the sense of volunteerism, opposed to paid on call. But it depends on frequency and regularity of call-ins to shifts. So long as the call-ins are sporadic and not, I mean, if you live in New York City and you know as a paid on call firefighter that you're going to be out on a fire every single night, so there is really no on call. You know you're on duty or not on duty. That becomes a different thing than a community like Chisholm, where you're not necessarily going to be out on call every single day or even every single week, where there's still some randomness to the nature of the calls.
Thank you.
Council, what do we want to do with this item? Go ahead, who?
This is Councilor Baki. So, like I said in our working session, I do feel that we can make this happen. I'm actually for it with certain limitations that are put into place. Like I mentioned at the working session, I think that, I would like to see the spreadsheet. So I don't think we should vote on this tonight. I think we should table it until our next meeting when we see that spreadsheet. But as far as I am concerned, I do believe there's a way we can make this work. I think that it's a necessity for us to find a way to make this work. And so that's kind of where I'm at. But I would support tabling it meeting in December when we can see that spreadsheet.
Council, in agreement with that? We won't table it. We'll just move it to the next. We'll forego it for now and we'll move it to the next meeting. We'll try to put together some real numbers to look at.
You, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Marty.
Yeah, I think that's the prudent move at this time.
Yeah.
However, I don't think we can necessarily just go ahead and make assumptions here unless Attorney Lindsay is completely confident in his assessment of NAPE, LARS, and ask me, because I think they're going to have something to say or review this before we jump in and make our assumptions and they come along and say they don't agree with it. That would be counterproductive. I think we need to know all this stuff up front as much as possible, or at least to get some sort of understanding from them on what their position is going to be on this before we run into grievances and complaints and find out that we're way off in our assessment of what this is going to cost.
I agree. I think that's great advice, Marty, on this one. Once we put the spreadsheet up together and we actually have ranges, we can float it by them to see if they're in agreement with that. And then, like you said, we may need a MOU on each of them. Everybody's freezing up tonight, eh? All right, we'll move that on to our first meeting in December if we have it ready by then, and we will bring it back. Stephanie, anything else we need to do there from your side of the desk?
Oh, thank you.
All right, moving on to my items, Council. Resolution 1121-93. After I got the packet, I started looking at this, and I think it would be appropriate to just forego this first item, if the council is in agreement with that, and move it down to item number 2 and post for that as well. The only concern I would have in doing that is I think because of the way the Central Iron Range Sanitary Sewer District works, I would want to look at those applications at the next council meetings, because I think the first meeting for the December meeting for Central Henry Sanitary Sewer District, I think we're going to look at any new appointments. So other than that, I would say I would like to just move that down, post it with our postings coming up, and allow somebody else to serve if they want to. Council, any disagreement with that? I think it's
Can you repeat that? Because I'm lost. You lost me.
So Steve Zalick's up for reappointment on the Central Henry Sanitary Sewer District. But the next item number 2 under myself, is to post for all the boards and commissions. And I thought it would be appropriate to just add that one to it and post for that one as well, to see if anybody else is interested, since he's been serving on it. That's all.
It makes sense, Mr. Mayor. It does.
So since I put it on there, can somebody give me a motion to just move it down, and we'll take it up as another posting under number 2, so we appropriately move it?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you, April. Further discussions on there?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, please don't change the agenda midstream. It's the second time tonight. Please refrain from that.
Marty, I didn't change the agenda. I got a motion to move it to the second item. That's how councils work.
We adopted the agenda at the beginning of the meeting.
I have motion and support to move that item to the second item and post for it as well. Margaret?
Counselor Halverson.
No.
Counselor Michelaraha.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Vaki.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion carries. All right, post for vacant boards and commissions. Council, we had a couple other ones that were in your agenda that were also on this list for the rec board that Tammy forwarded to you, as well as the one we just moved down. Let me find the right page so I can read off all of them. 55. So we have one opening for the Economic Development Authority. We have one position for the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. We have 3 positions for the Library Board. We have 2 positions for the Planning Commission. We have 1 position for the St. Louis County Fair Board. We have 2 positions for the Rec Board, and we have 1 position for the Central Iron Sanitary Sewer District. Looking for a motion to post for those commissions and board positions.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, April. Second for that.
Support.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Further discussion? Margaret?
Counselor Halverson.
Aye.
Counselor Michelaraha.
Aye.
Counselor Fountain.
Aye.
Counselor Lance.
Aye.
Counselor Vaki.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. That motion carries. Cigarette and tobacco mechanical amusement device licenses. Looking for a motion to approve the cigarette, tobacco, and mechanical amusement device licenses for 2022 contingent upon meeting all state and local requirements. The list is on page 57. Entertain that motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Adam. Second for that.
Second, Marty.
Thank you, Marty. Further discussion? Margaret?
Counselor Halverson.
Aye.
Council Nicola Raha.
Aye.
Council Fountain.
Aye.
Council Lance.
Aye.
Council Baki.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye, that motion carries. So the next item was actually an accident. Margaret's seen a post, I think it was Margaret that seen a post by Jesse from the radio station about an event coming up at Jim's, and we started calling around because they mentioned a sleigh ride, and it was a different date than the sleigh ride we approved at the last meeting, and it turns out there was another sleigh ride that's going to take the same route as outlined in the memo. So we are asking to approve the December 3rd, 2021 sleigh ride that'll happen at Jim's, same route, same situation from 4 to 7 o'clock. So that's what they're requesting. After talking to them, they did agree they forgot it, and so they are officially requesting it. So I entertain a motion around that event.
I'll make a motion.
I'll make them.
Support.
Thank you, Travis, seconded by Adam. Further discussion? All in favor, Margaret, sorry.
Council Halverson.
Aye.
Council Nicola Raha.
Aye.
Council Fountain.
Aye.
Council Lance.
Aye.
Council Baki.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, that motion carries. Council, last item on our agenda is letter of resignation from our longtime employee, Larry Pervin. Let me read it to you. Please accept my letter of resignation for retirement as of March 4th, 2022. Due to vacation time, my last day of work will be December 22nd, 2021. This will also include my duties on the Safety Committee and Emergency Management Committee. I've enjoyed my many years working for the city of Chisholm. Larry, we definitely enjoyed having you as well in the hard work you've done. So I was looking for a motion to accept Larry's letter of resignation and obviously thank him for his many years of experience and work he's done for us.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Larry Prevenanzi.
Thank you. April, second for that.
Support.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Further discussion? Margaret?
Council Halverson.
Aye.
Council Nicola Raha.
Aye.
Council Fountain.
Aye.
Council Lance.
Aye.
Council Baki.
Aye.
Mayor Champa.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Council, anything else before I look for a motion to adjourn? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Adam. Second.
Support.
Thank you, Cheyenne. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thanksgiving.
Any
Happy
opposed?
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
This meeting is adjourned. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy some time with family.
Have a